Good afternoon and welcome to today's Ad Week webinar, where we will be looking at prioritizing advertising efficiency for better business outcomes, and really why the fact that too hard in advertising, it's really just too easy to say that. So we're going to be talking about, again, bringing efficiency into our outcome-based advertising. And our webinar today is being sponsored by Clinch. I'm Stuart File, Vice President of Branded Content at Adweek, and I am going to be your host for today's webinar. Before we begin, I'm just going to take a few minutes here and make sure that we've got all the housekeeping chores set up, and that you also know what to expect from our webinar today. So our webinar is going to mostly be conversation. I will actually be moderating that conversation with our guests. There will also be a brief demo at the very end, because I know one of the things Clinch will be talking about is some of the new platform that they have, and in the conversation with Merkle, and I'll get into that in a second. Merkle is being one of the initial users of this platform, but really talking about it as really in the state of advertising today. Our presentation should go somewhere in the 35-minute range. Afterwards, we're going to have plenty of time for audience questions. So if at any point during today's conversation, if you have a question for our speakers, just simply use the question tool that you should see there on your screen, probably right underneath the window where you see me now. So submit your questions. We're going to get to as many as we can following our live panel. So again, let's get them queued up during the conversation. It's not too late, by the way, to invite your colleagues to come and join us today, and we'd really love it if they would. To make that easy for you, we sent you a final reminder email about 15 minutes ago. In there, you're going to find a link to the registration page. So grab that link, send it off to your colleagues. They still have lots of time to come on in and join us live. But if they can't make it live, today's webinar is being recorded. It will be available on demand, and we're going to send you a link to that on-demand version later this afternoon. So check your email, 3:30, 4 o'clock Eastern time. You'll get that. Not much on the slide front today, but we do have a PDF of the limited slides available. So if you want to download that or just have a record of today's webinar, we've made them available in event resources, so you can go on in there and grab them. But just again, for full transparency, it's mostly cover slide, and at the end there is a slide on contact info for Clinch if that's something that you are interested in. Lastly, I want to remind everyone to please check out the Adweek webinar calendar, www.adweek.com/webinars with an S. Whole lot of webinars coming up, 3 a week. Should be adding another 1 or 2 to the calendar today and tomorrow. See what's there, see what interests you, sign up for an upcoming webinar, check out our entire archive of on-demand webinars as well. That is every webinar we've done over the past 12 months. So I'm sure you will find something of interest and something where you can, again, hopefully boost some of your knowledge and improve your ability to be a really good marketer. So let's move on to today's webinar, and let me just take a quick moment here and introduce our speakers before I bring them up on screen. Our guest speaker today is Amy Thorne, who's the EVP and Creative Business Lead over at Merkle. Amy's got extensive experience driving results for major organizations by applying, again, analytic performance metrics to creative. Seems to be a theme this week, but again, she is sort of the epitome here of the science and art of marketing and of creative. And again, she has a strategic approach to bringing distinct creative experiences to life through human truths and data-driven insights. From our sponsors at Clinch, we're joined by Oz Etzioni. Oz is the CEO and co-founder of Clinch. He founded Clinch on the idea that optimal brand experiences reflect the real-time circumstances of the viewer, and that company's mantra of personalization everywhere has really evolved from his background rooted in consumer experience and innovation. So without further ado, let me bring our speakers up on screen here. So here we go. Oz and Amy, welcome. And as we're bringing you up, I am also going to take these slides down for the audience. Here we go. Great. So welcome, both of you. Really glad to have you here as part of this webinar. And Oz, I know it's an exciting time for you as you are launching your new platform. And Amy, I know you've been involved in sort of the use of that platform. So it's great to have you both here. But let's talk a little bit about the state of advertising overall and the advertising market. And so, Amy, you know, things have evolved, right? Advertising and marketing always evolve. But what have you seen as sort of like that key evolution over the past couple of years, just to sort of set the stage for our conversation?
Yeah, no, I think that's a totally loaded question. We could, have a whole segment just on that. But I think the realities are that, and we're really talking about COVID over the last couple of years and really what it's done to, in our minds, really truly collapse that funnel down, where it's much harder for companies to think about what they're pushing out versus on the flip side, what customers are really expecting now. They took control over their destinies is really what they did over the last couple of years. They were on that pace to kind of really be the ones navigating those experiences and really driving those experiences. But COVID really put that ownership, again, everybody being at home, really had to change how we were thinking about optimizing the experiences and how we could do it at such a pace to keep up with our customers. So it completely transformed how we shifted prioritization. Obviously, the efficiency component had to be a key strategy in how we were going to drive success going forward. So that's a big one from my perspective.
Yeah, and again, Merkle is a performance agency. It's almost like the changes fell into your wheelhouse on a certain level out of all of this. Oz, what have you seen as sort of those key developments?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I see. I mean, from our perspective as a tech partner, we're seeing the lines blurring also from the channel's perspective, right? So, I spent mainly with like the funnel. Everything is becoming like a very holistic experience, and the journey is becoming kind of like leading the way. And then the channels themselves, it becomes irrelevant almost because consumers are jumping and changing channels and devices and environments. And you got to look at everything in a very holistic way, right? And understand that you can't work in silos anymore. And there are a lot of slogans in the industry in the past few years, breaking the silos and consumer journeys, but the time has come. Right? It's like it cannot be a slogan anymore because that's the reality, right? And we're all consumers, we all see it from our perspective as well. We expect the brands to be everywhere we are with the best and most relevant experience. And what we're seeing also is the fact that everybody's becoming more sophisticated, right? So that triangle that kind of like drives the industry of media, creative, and data, once you figure out that triangle and it works seamlessly together, you become more efficient, more effective, and the experience that you provide to your consumers is a smarter experience and more relevant to them.
It's funny, as you bring up, as an industry, we have our buzzwords, and we talk about our buzzwords for years, and then we turn around and then we realize that, well, a good portion of those buzzwords become our reality, right? We've been talking about journeys, we've been talking about experience,
right.
We've been talking about personalization. It's all there, but I mean, this is really the moment of truth for so much of this.
Yeah, right? I mean, many times the solution for those slogans or a way for someone to show that they're actually approaching it the right way is really a Band-Aid, right? It's really like a temporary patch of we're going to do something. But we're in a time that we need to look at the foundation and we need to look at our roadmap and try to understand, okay, what are we building that is future proof? Who are our partners? Who are we going, towards to work in the next 3 to 5 years, and how, and what is the approach that we're taking? Because, For us, it's great working with Amy and Merkle because they're great partners and we share the vision. And I think that's something that everybody in the industry needs to do because this is the time to make decisions. There isn't any more time to waste. The pandemic accelerated everything in 3 to 5 years.
Got it. We talk a lot about, we're dealing a lot of this from an agency point of view. And so it's interesting to hear where your clients are. And while you don't need to talk about specific clients, but Amy, as you look at sort of your clients' goals and strategies and what they come to you with, have those changed, and has their level of, I want to say, sort of risk willingness or risk aversion changed when it comes to things like being innovative and looking at new approaches?
Yeah. So, our clients, and Oz kind of mentioned this earlier, they're more sophisticated and savvy than ever before. I mean, let's be completely honest about that. So what they're coming and challenging us to do is really transform with them to keep up at the pace that their business is willing to go. And I think one thing that's very, very interesting to me is that as we think about how their focus has changed, it really comes back down to that connectivity to what they're spending and that return on ad spend being absolutely mission critical. And it's not just at kind of a bottom of funnel, conversation anymore. Like I said, it's collapsed. So it's everywhere that we need to go to meet the customer. Their clients are out there asking for that one-to-one. And I think one-to-one, I think you heard about it, and that was about, a phrase, right? People-based marketing, what is that thing? The reality is that it's table stakes now to be able to speak from that position. It's another thing to actually be able to act and execute and activate on that promise. And I think that's really mission critical to be able to understand, one, it's actually quite complex, and you need partners that are going to be able to simplify that and meet your objectives, meet your business goals, help you drive your business forward, reach new audiences in unique ways that are truly tangible to them and relevant in ways unheard of before across the spectrum. As Oz mentioned, those channels, those mean very little to the customer. The end user here is consuming content at different points in their day. And honestly, it runs the spectrum. So how are we able to connect that data? Really be able to understand how we need to react to that customer at their next beat.
Got it. Oz, as you're seeing this, and again on the customers, right? We talked a lot about response, right? And everything needs to be measurable. Everything right now, creative executions have to have an end result. Is that a pendulum that's swinging, or is it a pendulum that just is always going to go and it's going to sort of stay there in that results and response side as we're doing this?
Well, I think you want and you should be able to measure everything that you do, right? Whether you're spending the money in the right place, whether you get the right return, the return that you expect to get. Is it short term? Is it long term? Where exactly you need to invest? Where the audiences are? One key thing is really to understand who you need to talk to, right? And where you need to spend the money, where you need to emphasize more, and how you need to communicate with them. But I would say one thing, that yes, performance and outcome is really important. But what we're seeing happening right now in the market is that because of the complexity of even executing the straightforward campaigns that before were really, really easy, suddenly it means several channels, a lot of data, a lot of executions, many different audiences. Even the basic campaigns become very complex to the same team, right? With the legacy workflows or technology from before. And we see that efficiency and workflow automation and having the technology as the extension of your team, right? Not replacing anyone, but an extension in order to get scale and activation is something that is measured almost, as heavy as the performance and the outcome itself.
So that,
and obviously it impacts.
But as on the complexity side, I mean, it's almost like, as you said, things that were easy a few years ago seem to be complex now. What's changed over the past couple of years that we've seen? What are the sort of these disruptors that are ultimately making everything so complex?
So, it goes back to what Amy said at the beginning, right? The lines are blurry. There's no like top of the funnel, middle funnel, performance. Everything kind of like becomes all meshed together. You got many more channels. Each channel has sometimes a different platform, a distribution platform. You got different type of audiences. You got identity. You got the level of granularity of the data is crazy if you compare it to what we had a couple of years ago. The speed, but also the expectation from the consumer side, right? If we don't get, as consumers, the relevant content every time and the right experience, and it's seamless, and it provides value to us, if we're not getting it, then we don't want it, right? It's disturbing us, it's wasting our time. All of that together creates a reality that is here to stay, and it's only going to get more and more complex. And that's why I said at the beginning, this is not a time for band-aids and patches. This is a time to look at the foundation and build the roadmap correctly, because this thing is only going to get complex and more robust.
Amy, can you give me an example? I mean, as we're talking about this, right, it almost seems like things are, process has been clunky to use a technical term here. But what has been, I mean, can you give some examples just so the audience has almost like a way to sort of relate to this because, maybe there's some Stockhausen syndrome, right? Or Stockholm syndrome, right? Where, you're sort of caught in here and you're very used to all of this. You don't realize that maybe this is wrong. So can you give a sense of like what this ultimately means and where sort of those challenges occur from this complexity?
Yeah, I think that, so done on a couple of fronts in terms of the complexity. Client organizations being quite complex and them actually trying to work through an opportunity and a way to identify how to simplify within their own teams, breaking down some of those walls, which add to our complexity. But the reality is that what Oz just talked about in terms of delivery of creative, delivery of strategy, delivery of data, the analytics feeds, the measurements that come out of that, identity. These are very complicated solutions. If you think about kind of just the laundry list or the litany of them, what we need to be able to do and what we are doing is focusing on where we can drive the most impact for our clients quickly. So on the ability to think through how do we become more effective and efficient so that we can actually bundle those solutions that are, it's really focused on the end game. So it's not going and over analyzing kind of every single line item. It's really focusing on where we can make the most difference. And a lot of that is in how do we efficiently go to market? How do we take that strategy and go from zero to hero very quickly? At the end of the day, our complexities are not our clients' complexities or challenges. And so we want to make sure that that's actually happening here. So I would say a really good example is how we're actually thinking about going to market from a creative perspective. That's a great example. It used to take 10 steps, and now we're really focusing on streamlining that to make it, through and through. And I think, again, being able to work with a partner like Clinch, who's willing to solution against that, complexity with us has been really critical. So I think it's finding those partners who are able to say, I understand the complications of the market. Here's a great solution. It covers everything that you and your team really need to deliver for that client, but it expedites all of it and gives us an opportunity to interface in a different way.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, and Stuart, I want to add that from our side, as a tech partner, we rely a lot on the openness and agility of our partners, right, on the agencies that we work with. And one of the great things, working with Amy and her team, Merkle and Nancy, is that many agencies look at tech partners as a templated solution. Okay, we're going to have a solution and we're going to apply it across the board. And what we're building together here is something like, each account is different. Each account has different goals and KPIs, different industry, and it shouldn't be templated, right? It should be scalable, it should be powerful, but it should be customizable and very, very flexible. And that's what we're trying to build together. So the brands don't feel that you push them into a template just because this is all that you can do, right? Mm-hmm. And they got to do it because they don't have a choice. The idea is to really tell them, it's like, no, we know exactly what's going on. We're ready with the technology. We're ready with the strategy. And we're here to support you to whatever you want to achieve, from the craziest idea to the straightforward activation across any channel that you want to reach your audiences.
Okay. Amy, with all of these changes going on and where you've seen this, there also are resulting changes within agencies, right? In terms of how you're building your teams, how you're creating your infrastructure. And it's interesting to hear it again from a Merkle standpoint, as Merkle's always been sort of like at the lead on a lot of, again, as we talked about, performance marketing, but then also on the Dentsu side, again, how you're structured as an organization. So what is actually going on in terms of agencies and what agencies need to build to serve these ever-evolving needs of a client base that, as I said, doesn't have a funnel anymore, right? Doesn't.
Yeah. No, it's a great question, Stuart. I think what we look at is how operationally we really rally around kind of a centralized solution, mm-hmm. right? One that is focused on the intake, the education, the support, the strategy that needs to go into bringing a dynamic creative optimization program to life for a client. So what we've chosen to do is really focus on how we do centralize that and build a team that is heavily focused on how quickly, again, it's moving so fast that we have to have that centralized core. Within it, we enable sales, solutioning, and outcomes. And so that's really been mission critical for us to do that. And I think a lot of agencies are kind of still scrambling or trying to kind of get there quickly. We're very fortunate because, we've known Oz for a couple of years now. And so we've been working toward that goal kind of ahead of the curve. And so we're really excited about everything that can be impacted quickly by having that kind of core, that centralized center of excellence, if you would, mm-hmm. that enables growth across the organization. Because again, we cannot allow our complexities to be our client's problem.
So you use the term center of excellence, and I know we wanted to talk a little bit about the center of excellence as this goes on. So can you talk a little bit about, again, what Merkle's center of excellence is? I know it's something you recently launched and sort of the inspiration behind that.
Yeah, well, the core is really around the strategy. Like how are we actually enabling, our clients' vision of true optimized programs? How do we actually enable that? And it really starts at kind of that strategic level. I think that a lot of times clients think, well, I just turn this thing on, right? Without there being a true roadmap and a focus around what dynamic creative optimization really should look like for them. Because as Oz mentioned, every single client is at a different place. So it's about understanding that a lot of clients come in and say, well, we do this kind of testing, and this mindset that we have is around performance. And when we really kind of peel back the covers a little bit, we start to realize that it's a little bit more like A/B testing, and that they're kind of trying to take kind of old logic and strategies and just turn them into something that's dynamic and always on. And there's really got to be that core component of strategy that really helps fuel those optimizations going forward. And it is then an opportunity for us to bring in the media, get media centered around what that strategy is going to look like in terms of the buying. And then it really becomes, what does the creative start to look like and feel like as we build that out? So it's not just one thing within the center. It's actually all of the core components that go into driving a DCO program that is successful and that can mature and grow at the pace of the client.
And Oz, as Amy's using the term DCO to do all of this, and I'm sure I'm going to see a question pop up because every time we use our own internal acronyms, other people never really know. Can you give us just a quick sense of DCO, and then maybe, again, this whole approach is really what has led you to flight control. So maybe you can sort of, help us through that quick definition and get us to where we want to be here.
Sure, definitely. So DCO is dynamic creative optimization, right? And the whole idea is that the ad is fully dynamic, right? The experience is fully dynamic. So in real time, we can make a decision based on all the signals that we can gather, that we can receive from all the partners that we know with the consent of the user, to make the right decision of what is the most relevant content to show that user, that both the user wants to see and the brands wants to push towards or to get as part of the experience, right? It could be a specific product, it could be messages, it could be promotions, download apps, whatever the experience is in whatever channel or device, it varies. I want to also, talk a little bit about the Center of Excellence from our perspective, because I got to tell you, and I think it's really important for a lot of tech partners like ours, right? And I know this is, and I'm talking not just as Clinch, but as, a lot of tech providers and tech partners in the industry. This is truly important and valuable because sometimes, or many times, it's really hard to understand who you need to talk to within the agency. Who needs what are the challenges, right? And you find yourself talking to different teams, and a lot of people don't really understand what's the value that you can bring to the different teams. And the Center of Excellence helps both sides because it educates the agency from within, right? And helps them identify the challenges and what are the right technologies to use. But it also facilitates, for us, the engagement with the right teams and how things should be done without wasting anybody's time, especially not the clients. So it's a huge initiative. It's great for everybody. And I encourage every agency and every tech partner to do so and to work with the Center of Excellence. We've seen it's been working amazing. Oh, Stuart, we can't hear you.
We lost your sound, Stuart.
Sorry, I'm going to mime this entire thing. Thank you. So I would have, I'm in a box. I can be a mime. Sorry, it's not a webinar. If somebody doesn't forget to go off mute. What I was going to say to you, Oz, is tell me a little bit about flight control.
Sure.
I know you've been working on this. This is a really important initiative. It's things that Merkle has had a chance to use going forward. But set the stage, because I know we've got a demo coming up, a very brief demo on some of this, just sort of give a sense of what it is. But you want to just give an overview, and then we can sort of go into that demo.
Definitely. So flight control is really the work and the understanding and the insights that we gather in the last couple of years, from running directly with the brands and working very closely with the agencies, especially with Merkle and Dentsu. And it's the realization that DCO and personalization in general is very complex. It's mostly a black box because a lot of people don't really understand how it works. And it's very hard to take the strategy and what you want to activate and translate it into a platform, okay? And then monitor it and see actually what's going on and understand what's happening, but even beyond, understand why things are happening, not just what is happening. So what we've done is we broken down DCO and personalization and rebuild it into a SaaS platform that anyone in the industry can use, streamlines the workflow. There's a lot of automation, and you have the same easy workflow across all the different channels, right? And it provides an omni-channel activation for social, CTV, programmatic, anywhere you want to run. You have one unified platform with one brain and decision engine that allows you to easily build strategies, help you with the QA, a lot of automation, collaboration of teams, but eventually visualizes everything for you, from building the strategy all the way to the execution and the insights and analytics of how things are running, what's working, what's not working, and why.
Great.
So for us, it's a game changer. Many years in the works, and with a lot of help from our partners.
Great. So shall we run that demo?
Let's go for it.
All right. So here we go. So again, we do a brief demo here. It's video based for our audience. So here we go.
Flight Control is the first simple, transparent, and visual omni-channel platform that allows advertisers and agencies to build, run, and measure any type of campaign. From the simplest to the very complex, highly personalized campaigns across all channels through a visual interface that doesn't require specialized technical knowledge. I'm going to take you inside Flight Control and show you, at a high level, what it looks like and how simple and intuitive it is to use. We're now in the Omni-Channel Campaigns overview. You are, and if not, you should be, running on several channels in your campaigns: video, display, social. With Flight Control, it's all in one platform with the same workflow and advanced analytics. No need to have a social expert and a display expert and a video expert and a dedicated platform and workflow for each. Part of being an omni-channel platform is also being able to report and measure across all channels and share and inform the finding and insight between the channels. Once we create a campaign, we land on the main area here. This is what we call the campaign map. Essentially, it's a visual representation of the strategy, with all the logical components of it in the form of what we call cards. The cards are the building block of your strategy that you can add, customize each card, and connect to build your overall campaign strategy. Eventually, you'll connect the creative cards, which will run and optimize your selected creatives based on your strategy. As a personalization and DCO platform, we're already integrated with your key partners, DSPs, media buying platforms like the Trade Desk and DV360, as well as all sorts of different data sources. So there are no complicated integrations for you to do to get up and running. Now, let's jump into an already built campaign. As I mentioned, you start with the campaign main card, which defines the basics of campaign type, landing page, what data sources or partner integration you'll be using, from weather data to sports, location, viewability, and all other major DSPs. You connect with a click of a button. With the Trade Desk and DV360, we have special integrations that allow for full automation between the platforms and allow us to mirror setup, wrap, and append tracking tags, traffic tags, which save days of manual work and eliminate any mistakes with instant automation and auto QA. So the cards connect with data and creative templates and do different things. This card is a weighting card, which controls how many impressions different creatives get. There are other cards for scheduling creative flights, auto-optimizing creatives by A/B testing, and most importantly, for applying dynamic decisioning logic custom to a creative strategy and what details we receive about an impression opportunity. The condition card is a fully customizable card that can serve for any unique strategy and rules you come up with for your campaign. So the platform will never limit your activations, but will make any strategy you come up with actually possible. The campaign map shows all the logical pathways so all the teams can have a very good overview of how the campaign is set up. The system QAs the campaign to make sure there are no conflicts or dead ends in the logic. Finding an error on a pivot table is near impossible, and Excel won't tell you if you've made one. You can collaborate, approve, and comment on top of the campaign map. If you need to make a creative change, it's super easy. Whether a quick creative swap from your creative library, or you can always go in and change a specific parameter in your creative kit, like legal text, CTA color, CTA text, and then you can apply that change automatically to as many live creatives as you choose. It can happen across multiple campaigns and channels. This is a huge time saver over changing each creative manually. The platform includes integration with complex feed of any type, location, products, weather, language. So, as you saw, the campaign maps are easy to create. You can add cards quickly and easily and connect them in a drag and drop way and then easily QA and preview. It just works. It's easy. It's fast. So if you just connect the cards and the right creative, you're set. Once your setup is ready, you can now move to preview mode, which simulates the actual activation and ad server. So you can preview how different logical paths will play out and follow the logic of any parameter you've set up in your campaign. So if you want to see what the ad looks like in Texas for an in-market shopper, you can easily simulate that. Or if you want to see what offer will display in April, and if it changes based on the weather or audience segment, you can do that as well. When you're ready to activate a campaign, you can do that right from the dashboard. I hope that was exciting enough for you to see in terms of setup and campaign preview. I want to show you the really exciting part of the analytics. We built all the analytics into the same system, so no need to go out to a different platform and crunch numbers that you can then turn into tables in Excel and export to PowerPoint, because analytics are baked into the system. You get them in real time, whenever you want. So you can make decisions while the campaign is actually still running. Everything is visually represented. You can see how every path of the campaign map is performing, what strategy, what creative works and what not, and why it's not working. You can see what is influencing any KPI. I know that was only a few minutes and a quick overview, and there are many more robust capabilities such as creative intelligence, visual optimization insights, predictions, and many more. But the idea was to give you a glimpse of how powerful the platform is and that it really is that easy. You can certainly get under the hood and do really amazing things to let data drive your creative decisions based on the campaign map's logic. And I hope that after this quick demo, you now understand why we named it Flight Control. It really gives you the power to do more than you can today and do all of it more easily than you're doing today.
All right. I'm back and I'm unmuted this time. So Oz, Amy, Oz, thanks for the demo. Anything as we want to sort of follow up on any of that discussion as part of this?
Yeah, I mean, this is obviously flight control in a couple of minutes, kind of like just trying to give the sense of the power of the platform. Obviously, everything is much more granular and automates almost everything that today you need to do manually in order to scale up. And it really frees you up to work more on the strategy and think and try to analyze in real time what's really going on with the campaign, things that you couldn't have done before because you couldn't see it, and you have to wait to the report and analyze the report. Everything now is visual, everything is clear, and everything applies all the insights and prediction in the analytics between the different channels that you're running under one hood of one platform.
Got it. I see, by the way, it looks like we're almost getting to Q&A time here. Amy, anything that you want to add into that before we take a minute and take some audience questions?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think for us, as we were kind of part of the beta set and reviewing this platform, for us, the visualization, the connectivity between all of those involved, starting with strategy all the way out to measurement, everything that goes in between in terms of creating an efficient and effective workspace was really critical. And I think that the reality is that it's not, there's still users that have to interface with this. We consider them power users because it's not, just stand it up and run. There is a logic to it. And Clinch, I think, has, again, worked well with taking a lot of our inputs. And again, an innovation like this, we do see as a game changer that we've really been waiting for from the industry.
Excellent. I want to thank you both again, just for great conversation. I know we want to take some audience questions here. So let me just transition here one sec, because the other thing, of course, is let me just toss as we go into questions here, just that one slide. So we've got, again, if you want some more details on flight control, I have just put up and a demo, a link you can use to reach out to Clinch on some of that. So go ahead. I'm sure, Oz, you guys are all set on all of this. And again, I know that that's sort of part of the follow-up on today's webinar for a good portion of our audience as well. To our audience, we do want to take your questions. We have had a number of them coming in during today's presentation. So if you do have a question for our speakers, just really anything having to do with the state of advertising, the state of managing a very, very complex process these days, just submit your questions using the question tool that you see. And we are going to get to as many as we can over the next 5 to 7 minutes or so. Let me just give you a couple quick reminders here, because we did get a couple of these questions coming in. Number one, yes, today's webinar has been recorded. It's going to be available on demand, and we're sending you a link to that on-demand version. And you're going to get that link probably about 4 o'clock Eastern time today. Feel free to share that link with your colleagues. And again, somebody actually asked, said they have their whole team, they want to see this conversation. They can go in and see it, share the link, they can see it directly. Better yet, have them register. We will send them that link directly as soon as it is available later this afternoon. Not much on the slides, but if you want this link and a couple of the other things, or remember who is speaking, you can download a PDF of the deck right now in Event Resources. Let's get to these questions that are starting to come in here. And first one, look, we talk a lot about, and let me just take this other slide. Sorry, I'm just going to take the slides down again. Of just, again, the source of inefficiency. And so, Amy, I'm going to throw this one to you. Sort of that, I guess what I want to say is the disjointed media and creative teams. I mean, it's like it's almost like you can have a webinar on this every 6 months or 6 years as we talk about this. But as you're trying to sort of build greater synergy now, right? I mean, creatives have to be thinking about the media where it's running, but you can't be creative if you're thinking it's going to be a run-of-site ad, a homepage takeover. It's going to be on social. It's running on CTV. It's going to be a print camp. I mean, so many different. We keep going on. You have to be thinking about the media, and the media buyers have to be thinking about the creative to a certain level, especially as we're going in a more dynamic creative execution. So how do you get those teams talking to each other, working together, being more effective?
Yeah, so loaded question, of course. But I think that the way that we looked at the challenge, and certainly felt like we had to make some really significant changes in terms of how we were approaching that very challenge, is that we don't see ourselves as media and creative anymore. We live under activation. And frankly, when you pivot and make that focal point around kind of that end activation goal, and you put creative and media in there together, that's really where we start to see some profound differences, because you can't really have, I mean, creativity needs to live on both the media side. It also needs to live in what we're defining as the creative message, or those, assets that we're developing. By taking away kind of those layers or those walls between creative and media, and putting us together with one goal in mind, it's been completely different for us this year. I mean, honestly, it's made a huge difference. We sit, next to, and, virtually, right, a lot, but we really are briefing at the same time. We're focusing on, understanding the media buy, the planning phase of it with the creative team as part of that. Because what we can do is we can start to flip things back on their head, ask those questions about the experience in a different way. And that can have profound differences on both the end state, what the customer experiences, as well as how we're going to market from a planning and buying perspective.
Got it. Oz, question came in. Obviously, as we ran that demo, tons of questions have come in, and I'm going to leave some of those so that your team can follow up with some of these people afterwards. But as we're talking about this, and we're talking with Amy, and we're a large agency, but that's not the holding companies are not this entire world. There are a lot of mid-sized agencies, smaller agencies out there who can do this. How does or what are the benefits of something like flight control when you've got sort of more of a mid-sized agency that may not have that sort of huge Dentsu execution on something like this?
Sure. So, flight control was designed to be a self-service, right? Obviously, we support and we onboard the teams, but for people who are already involved in creative executions and media activations, this is a very fast track to be fully self-service. So I think, again, we put a lot of time and effort and a lot of feedback from the Merkle teams and the beta testing into creating everything as intuitive as possible, so you can start doing more and more and explore on your own. And we have a lot of tutorials and videos and everything to support you. But I think even for the mid-tier and not necessarily just the holding groups, it's going to be a very useful tool as a self-service to use as an extension of the team, to be able to scale up, serve more clients, do more execution across different channels without the need for more and more people or more and more specific, teams or channels. And we're having those conversations, all the time. So.
Time for maybe one more question. Amy, let me toss this one your way, because it was a question on, understanding some things about dynamic creative and this idea of sort of understanding, when you're measuring results and when you're looking at, with the whole point of a data-driven approach to creative is understanding what works, what doesn't, why things work, why they don't, and how they go through there. Are you looking at sort of the overarching piece? Are you looking at specific elements? What is sort of like your use of data in this on the creative itself to ensure that, you have the best combination of elements going forward?
Yeah, no, it's something that I completely understand why the question's being asked, because I think that you don't know where to go in some cases because without that kind of experience. The truth of it is we really focus on, in terms of the overarching, what did we drive in terms of performance? But what DCO really allows us to do is to start to really understand at a much more finite level the specifics that go into the ad, those components and the data signals that we're getting, both in and out, right? Thinking through what the customer is engaging with, so that in really that real-time component of how we had to pivot and what the platform is serving up to that individual or that next person that is very bespoke to them. So we really are understanding it at that more one-to-one level. But of course, we want to understand in aggregate as well. The nice thing about DCO and running things that way is that you do have a really good perspective, in kind of day parts if you want to go there. So we do slice it and dice it, and we have our hypothesis and our roadmap that really give us that perspective of what do we want to test, how do we want to approach it, and then we are using the data to constantly optimize and refine our story to that customer.
Got it. I'd love to keep going on some of these questions, but I'm looking at the clock and I'm seeing we are fast approaching the end of our time, and we want to give everyone a chance to go, get a glass of water before their next eventual meeting out of all of this, right? We all know our lives these days. But Amy Thorne from Merkle, Zitzioni from Clinch, thank you both. Really great insights, and for also, taking some time to answer some of these audience questions. To our audience, again, I know we had a lot of questions we didn't get a chance to get to, and Oz in particular, some of the ones that are maybe a little bit more nuts and bolts on the platform. I'm sure we're going to forward these over to you, Oz, so you have the opportunity for some offline response with some of these questions that may have happened here. So just again, the final reminders here, just, keep your eyes out. You're getting that link to the on-demand version. If you want to know how to contact Clinch, grab the slides. They're in there in event resources. And lastly, adweek.com/webinars, our webinar calendar. Please, you're going to see that, see what webinars are coming up, sign up for an upcoming webinar, check out some of the on-demand webinars as well. So again, thanks today to our speakers and our sponsors at Clinch. Thanks to our audience for taking time out of your very busy day, and we look forward to seeing everyone at an upcoming Adweek webinar. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.